Are you tired of your brain fighting against you every time you try to do something difficult? What if I told you that you can actually trick your mind into loving hard work? It sounds impossible, right? But the science is clear. Discipline isn't about brute force or endless willpower. It's about rewiring your brain's reward system. In the next few minutes, we'll uncover the psychological secrets that turn daunting tasks into your greatest allies, making you more productive and fulfilled than ever before. Stay tuned, because you won't want to miss this transformation. We have been lied to about what discipline actually is. Most people view it as a grim, internal war, where you force yourself to do things you hate through sheer grit. But here is the truth. Willpower is a finite resource, like a battery that drains throughout the day. If you rely solely on it, you will eventually crash. The real secret to high achievers isn't that they have more willpower. It's that they have reconfigured their relationship with effort. By understanding the neurobiology of the brain, specifically how the basal ganglia and the prefrontal cortex interact, we can move from forced labor to automatic flow. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for logical decisions, but it is easily exhausted. Meanwhile, the basal ganglia handles habits and requires almost no energy. Today, we are moving beyond the just do it mantra. We are going to explore how to manipulate your brain's internal chemistry to make hard work feel not just tolerable, but genuinely satisfying. This isn't about working harder, it's about working with your biology instead of against it, turning the friction of effort into the fuel for your success. To love hard work, you must understand dopamine. In 2026, Stanford experts like Dr. Anna Lemke have highlighted how our modern world traps us in a dopamine deficit state by providing constant, easy hits from social media and junk food. When your brain gets cheap dopamine, hard work feels physically painful because the contrast is too high. To fix this, you need to implement what psychologists call dopamine layering. Instead of rewarding yourself after a task, you must learn to find the reward within the friction itself. Think of it like an athlete who learns to love the burn in their muscles. By consciously acknowledging the difficulty as a sign of growth, you trigger a release of dopamine during the effort, not just at the finish line. This shifts your brain from a results-oriented mindset to a process-oriented one. A 2026 study from Johns Hopkins University suggests that the brain can switch to automatic behavior much faster than the old 21-day myth suggests, provided the reward signal is correctly aligned with the action. When the struggle becomes the signal for a reward, the resistance you usually feel begins to evaporate, replaced by a sense of focused engagement that makes even the most grueling tasks feel like a game you are winning. Discipline is often just a byproduct of good design. James Clear's research, updated for 2026, emphasizes that our environment is the invisible hand that shapes our behavior. Your brain is constantly scanning for cues to trigger a routine. If your phone is on your desk, the cue is distraction, and the routine is scrolling. To trick your brain into loving hard work, you must make the hard task the path of least resistance. This is called environmental architecture. For example, if you want to write every morning, set your laptop open with a document ready the night before. By removing the friction of starting, you bypass the brain's natural tendency to avoid energy-intensive tasks. Furthermore, by utilizing the habit loop, cue, routine, reward, you can automate discipline. When a behavior moves from the prefrontal cortex to the basal ganglia, it no longer requires willpower. It becomes a procedural memory, like driving a car. You don't need discipline to brush your teeth because it's automated. Your goal is to make your deepest work just as effortless. Recent findings in July 2025 confirm that cognitive control is heavily influenced by the balance of serotonin and noradrenaline, which are stabilized when your environment reduces the need for constant decision-making. To truly master the psychology of discipline, you must understand a concept known as the friction paradox. Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate all forms of discomfort, believing that a life of ease is the ultimate goal. However, neurobiology suggests that the brain actually thrives on a specific type of tension called optimal challenge. When you engage in a task that is just slightly beyond your current skill level, your brain enters a state of heightened neuroplasticity. During this process, your neurons are firing in new patterns, and while this feels like strain or mental fatigue, it is actually the physical sensation of your brain upgrading its hardware. To trick your brain into loving this, you need to reframe the sensation of mental friction. Instead of viewing it as a signal to stop, you must view it as a signal that you are currently growing. Think of it like a pilot experiencing turbulence. It's not a sign that the plane is crashing, but a sign that they are moving through a high-energy environment. When you lean into this friction, you trigger the release of norepinephrine, which sharpens your focus and prepares your system for deep work. By voluntarily seeking out these moments of cognitive strain, you train your amygdala to stay calm under pressure. Over time, the very tasks that used to cause you to procrastinate become the ones you seek out. Because your brain has learned to associate that specific strain with the massive dopamine payoff that comes from overcoming a difficult obstacle. To truly master discipline in 2026, we must address the hidden emotional barrier that stops most people before they even start: the link between self-worth and performance. As psychologist Nick Vogue from Princeton University has recently detailed, many of us don't procrastinate because we are lazy, but because we are afraid. We use procrastination as a self-protection mechanism. If we don't try our hardest, we can tell ourselves that we failed because we didn't put in the effort, rather than failing because we weren't good enough. This is a psychological trap that makes hard work feel threatening to your very identity. To trick your brain into loving the grind, you must decouple your results from your value as a human being. New research suggests that happiness and well-being act as precursors to self-control, rather than just being the result of it. This means that if you approach a task with self-compassion and a sense of security, your prefrontal cortex remains online and functional. However, if you approach work with anxiety and self-judgment, your brain triggers a fight-or-flight response, making deep focus biologically impossible. You can hack this by practicing task separation. Before starting a difficult project, explicitly remind yourself that the outcome of this specific session does not define your intelligence or your future. By lowering the emotional stakes, you reduce the perceived threat of the work, allowing your brain's reward system to engage with the task itself rather than the fear of failure. This emotional regulation is the secret sauce that allows high performers to stay calm and even joyful during high-pressure situations. When you stop viewing hard work as a test of your worth, it becomes a playground for your skills, turning what was once a source of anxiety into a source of genuine flow and satisfaction. The final psychological trick is the identity shift. Research by Angela Duckworth shows that grit and long-term perseverance are tied to how we perceive ourselves. Instead of saying, "I am trying to work out," say, "I am an athlete." When you align your actions with your identity, hard work stops being a choice and starts being a reflection of who you are. Your brain naturally seeks cognitive resonance. It wants your actions to match your self-image. As of 2026, we know that meaning is the strongest driver of sustained motivation. When you view yourself as someone who loves a challenge, your brain produces a stress-reducing response when things get difficult. You aren't fighting yourself anymore. You are simply acting in accordance with your nature. Mastering the psychology of discipline is a daily practice of rewiring your internal systems. Start small, stay consistent, and watch as your brain begins to crave the progress that hard work brings. If you found these psychological insights helpful, make sure to subscribe and comment below with the one habit you're going to automate this week.